Hello everyone and welcome back to Let's Play Blaster Master 2. In the last part, we went through stages 5 and 6, and now we're back for an admittedly short part just to finish off the rest of the game, because stage 7 is about as long as some of the previous stages have been, but stage 8's real short. I don't usually like to make videos this short, but sometimes I just have the cookie crumbles with how much footage I have left in the game. With that said, stage 7 definitely has some of the more treacherous areas to go through, but thankfully it's the first stage you can really ignore the ladders due to you having the jetpack. And it just makes me wish we got it a little bit earlier in the game, because I feel this game's quality could also have been increased by just making the reshuffling where you get certain abilities. With that said, like World Stage 6, the two bosses of the stage are just a wee bit familiar. It's the bosses from Stage 2 again. Again, technically consistent with what Blaster Master had done back in the first game, and would continue to do through its future installments. Kinda weirder to have it happen in a smaller game like this, though. And it's not to say, like, I wouldn't have minded a boss rush in this game, although I would have minded because I don't like how the bosses play in this game. It's just one of those things where, with what we already have, reducing it down to this much, it's kind of a weird idea as it is. And it's another reason I think this game really had either some amount of rushed development or time constraints were just a general factor. But that said, for beating this particular fight against this tank, we get the shield sub-weapon for Jason. With that said, it's easily the least useful sub-weapon in the game because, honestly, since you're mostly in these sections, you can use sub-weapons at least in S.O.P.H.I.A anyway, you don't really get a chance to use it. Again, though, if you could use sub-weapons as Jason in the boss fights, that wouldn't be so much an issue, now would it? Oh, well. It's kind of why I wish we got more post-mortems on games from their developers. Like, we've gotten a couple over the years, like, especially more recently, we started getting a lot of them. And we even get some years after the fact. Like, I think we got some on some of the earlier Diablo games at some point or another. But I feel it's just a good thing to have to look back on a developer's thoughts on the project. I would love to hear a lot of older game devs. Both in terms of, like, more senior game developers, but also developers of just older games, period. Look back on what they thought they did right, what they did wrong, and all that sort of stuff. Especially if it's a game that was, like, well-regarded, but I want to know what their shortcomings with what they thought they could have done better were, or, in the case it's a game that's not so well-regarded, what they thought they could have done to make it play better, or what the big limitation was. That said, I like Stage 7's music. Honestly, the latter half of the soundtrack is probably my favorite part of the soundtrack. Unfortunately, you just have to get through the rest of the game to get to it. With that said, time for the second boss fight of the stage. And like with the first one being the tank from Stage 2, this is the Spike tank again. Only it's a little more annoying, I feel. As the layout of the room, having that little lip there in the middle above the door, means it's harder to jump directly over it to avoid the spike stabbing into you. Thankfully, I think either it moves slower or just in general, your fire rate is just faster here just due to the smaller room, so you're getting more shots in. Either way, I feel it is easier this time around at the same time for some reason. I don't think your shots get more powerful the further you get into the game. I think it is just the rate of fire increase that happens, so it's a bit weird to have it be that much easier. Also, I know I sped up the boss's last part, but this would have made the video like 10 minutes, and there is a weird mental hurdle to me for making shorter videos. Like, it's one thing if I have to, like right now, but if I have to edit it and it gets close to 10 minutes, something about that just doesn't sit right with me anymore. Like, I feel, depending on the game at least, good length video is between 15 to 20 minutes. Closer to like a single cable TV time slot. Any longer needs to be dedicated to either longer games or specialty types like RPGs. Hence why a lot of my Final Fantasy stuff is between 25 to 35 minutes usually, barring certain standout videos just being longer, like I'm looking at the premiere of FF7. Whoa, I don't like how the camera jumps like that. With that said, since we already have the 2 bosses done for this stage, we just need to make our way to the actual boss fight, or the top-down section. I should note, I believe it's from the second fight there. You also get a key that you need to open a door. So I do believe you need to do both fights in this area at the least. Because that door is closed unless you have a key. Which even then, wish the doors that were closed would open up, but at the same time, them being closed still visually at least indicates which doors you need to use the keys on. Now, this is easily the hardest top-down section, which makes sense because it is the last one. Stage 8 doesn't have one of these. Because you have these different wall cannons that fire reflective shots. They are big, they hurt, and they bounce at 45-degree angles like the Caterpillar tank's weapons do. And I don't know why, I find them extraordinarily hard to dodge. Also, their bouncing is inconsistent. I feel when they're first firing or are firing from off screen, they bounce slightly differently and they try to aim more for you outright than if they're on screen or if they've fired more than once on screen. Maybe it's a luck thing, like maybe it's 50-50 on whether or not they bounce towards you or away from you at the 45-degree angle junctions, but it's weird. Also, I was laughing a little bit between videos because I was looking back at the game's manual again. And this game has something unique in its manual that I think I've only ever seen maybe once or twice before. It actively warns you not to use a turbo controller because apparently if you use a turbo controller, you just straight up cannot aim downwards with Jason for some reason. Probably because of how the fire rate works or something like that, how it works with like holding down or mashing buttons. And it warns you that you're going to need to aim down in Stage 5, so you shouldn't play it with a turbo controller. I've only seen a couple of games do that before. And even then, sometimes the game does that in-game itself, telling you not to do it because it'll give you a game over otherwise. Yes, I'm talking about Metal Gear Solid. And Metal Gear Solid 2. But even then, I've heard apparently sometimes the auto-fire controller stuff in Metal Gear Solid 1 and 2 will still work. It just depends on either like the rate of fire or how the auto-fire works. That Ocelot will be like, "You're fine," or "You're being a dick, stop it, please." With that said, we're about to wrap up this top-down section, so that means we're also about to head into Stage 8. And Stage 8, on a first run, can be one of the more nightmarish stages, because this entire place is a door maze. Sort of. There are doors all over the place that either lead to false rooms or lead you right back here to the start of the stage. There is only one door you need to enter, and that is the door to the final boss at the very end of the area. With that said, you're going to need to use a lot of the jetpack here, so I hope you have fuel. There should be, I think, a fuel canister somewhere in there. But my best advice to you, remember the shield power-ups I started using last part? Use them. Just avoid all damage here. It's admittedly why this part is so short, because I'm just rushing through the stage. Also, for some reason, they make you bring back the drill that we got back in Stage 2. It's the only other time in the game you use it. I don't get why. If you see a door and you see a pathway that goes beyond that door, why did that load in as a... I didn't notice that. That enemy loaded in as the number times 15. What? Huh? Weird. Just keep going. The door in particular we're looking for is this one here at the top left. But this is not a S.O.P.H.I.A door, this is a Jason door, which is a little weird because usually the Jason doors are a little bit different looking. Also, I do not like the Stage 8 theme. It's really annoying to my ears. It grates on them. With that said, now we're on to the final boss. I guess the final lightning being... This game's plot doesn't really exist. Throughout the entire fight, he's going to have several different attack patterns depending on how much damage you've dealt to him. The main consistent thing is he teleports all over the place. He'll teleport to either between the two platforms or on top of either of them, which means he can also teleport on top of you, but thankfully, like the circle boss fight we fought earlier on in the game, there's a brief period when he's teleporting in and out where he's incorporeal, so he won't take damage. Phase 1's pretty simple. Whenever he teleports in, he'll do 2 little hops, sending little rings of fireballs around him that you can just avoid by staying far enough away from him. I think the shots can actively absorb your shots, so that means it can be harder to do damage to him, but as long as you keep your distance, Phase 1 isn't too bad. Phase 2 starts when he's glowing red. At this point, he's going to do his 2 little hops, only sometimes he does 1, and he shoots out 3 homing projectiles at you. that can be pretty easy to dodge because they don't move too fast compared to, say, like Wily's 4 Balls of Doom from Mega Man 7. So you can just jump over them or hide behind one of the platforms to avoid them. Phase 3 starts at the very last portions of his health, I believe. It's when he's really glowing red. And it's easily the hardest to dodge, because if memory serves, it is a giant shockwave that's about as big as his sprite. And the way to dodge that is to either get on top of one of the platforms and jump, or duck below one of the platforms. Yeah, those are about the size of Jason. This is the trickiest phase of the fight, but honestly, compared to even bosses in Blaster Master 1, this is pretty easy. But I'll give it this, it's the most interesting boss fight in the game. And I also feel the most fair because its attacks are relatively consistent to their sprite size, and because of the size of the arena, you have good reaction times when it comes to dodging any of the attacks. And eventually, admittedly, he is a bit of a tanky boss, he has a lot of health, he just starts exploding, and you've won the game. You ready for some rushed-ass credit dialogue? Because we're about to get some rushed-ass credits dialogue. My favorite. As soon as the credits actually decide to start, there they are. Well done! Your mission was a complete success. The world is once again free from the evil forces of the mutant horde, programmed by Peter Harrison. Now we're on to the credits proper. That's Blaster Master 2. It's lesser than Blaster Master 1, I'd argue, barring maybe that one that's technically not even a Blaster Master game at all. It's the worst Blaster Master game. But that said, I do like how later games tend to at least reference it in some regards, so they at least acknowledge that it exists. It's got some good music. It's got some pretty graphics for the Genesis, especially for the era here and there. But it's not really worth going back to in any way, in my eyes. If you want to play it, it was on the Genesis. I think there was a Virtual Console port at some point, but I don't think it's really available anymore anyway. So if you want to play it, you're probably going to need to go the route of the 7 seas, so to speak. Also, the question mark is always there. This game doesn't have different endings depending on which difficulty you beat it on. I don't even think there are other difficulties you can beat it on. So, yay? But with that, I'm going to need to end this off here. At this point, the game just loops back to the title screen after the credits music ends. Thank you guys for watching. Have a great night. Take care. And I'll see you guys next Let's Play, whatever that may be. See you guys then.